I like we're back all up here at the same time. Isn't that nice? Welcome to the Monday Munch. It
Hey
is
everybody, welcome to Munch.
Monday.
Hello.
If you didn't get the concept by the idea or the name,
This will be our President Munch.
there you go. It's a presidential munch.
President deserves aftercare too.
Right.
He does deserve aftercare too.
I like radios that are on their lips. No, but tonight is all about aftercare, and I am super fucking excited about it because it's one that everybody here has knowledge on and better have experience on. So, because I know some of the topics we touch on that you guys are like, well, I don't know much about that, or myself, I don't know much about that, so we have to kind of skip around, and this is just like, it's free for all. So everybody's here. Dream is going to be with us on video maybe later, or at least on audio. They're still here, so we'll see shortly. But the importance of aftercare. So aftercare is probably like next to negotiations and such. And communication, which we'll get into in a second. Aftercare is super essential in every type of scene, even in non-scene, which we'll discuss later, in standard relationships,
Yes,
or vanilla
we could have
relationships, whatever you want to call it.
definitely covered aftercare in our vanilla segment.
Yeah, so welcome to it. And yeah, so does anybody want to get started, or am I going to do it?
Care for oneself and maybe your partner.
Oh man, I know a guy that wrote an article on this stuff that he probably should have pulled up already, but
That's what you get for being ill prepared, I guess.
Well, I don't think I've ever prepared for hardly anything ever in my life, so we just take it as we go.
That's fair.
Little Mr. KinkSlayer article.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one. You've got a couple that have aftercare in them.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that's super important to really cover and kind of spam out there as much as you can, so somebody, at least if they don't read the article in aftercare, they can see it somewhere else in the article and hopefully get interested in it at some point and figure out how essential that is. So
yeah, I would say that aftercare is as essential as communication. Sorry, Ray, go ahead.
It's okay. I was just going to say, I think that should actually be an area that people learn about before they learn anything else kink related.
Yeah.
It's like learning to stretch if you're going to be like lifting weights or exercising.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I'm one of those people that's like, fuck, I don't need to stretch.
Yes, you do.
I'll just tear something and deal with it later.
Line number up before it takes down a gazelle.
You're not a lion.
Maybe, you don't know.
How do you know what my persona is, huh?
Water.
All right. No.
we could be lions. You never know.
Show your water. You're not a lion today. You're a cheetah.
You're right. I am a total cheetah today.
Tiger. Okay. Let's get this right. I am not a lion. I am a tiger.
Rawr.
Because, water is essential, but comfort items are there too.
I have my comfort possum over here now, but she's not there.
You're sport possum?
Sign off camera.
I'm just listening to Mr.'s directions from earlier. He said, funny, forget your water.
Well, that's because I swipe type and I never proofread. Okay, so I'll say some crazy shit because I'm just swiping and I'm like, you know what? That's good enough. You'll figure it out. If you don't, you'll ask questions.
So anyways, like saying, with aftercare, I think it's as important as communication, because if you don't know what somebody's going to be like after the moment has occurred, then it's definitely something that should be spoken about, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the thing it comes down to, though, I mean, like we've talked about with communication, it goes hand in hand because, like you said, if you don't know what somebody's like after a scene or what they need, you're not doing your part to keep things, hunky dory and keep everybody happy and feeling good and wanting to come back.
I was just going to say, we really need to start by breaking down the definition of aftercare, which we didn't do because it's kind of simple, but it is the care that you would take for your partner and or yourself after a scene or a role-playing session of sort, or
Even after, like, those of us that do the adult live streams, even after something like that, I personally have a self aftercare routine. Otherwise, I drop like a motherfucker.
Mm-hmm. And drop is another thing a lot of people don't understand either.
Sorry.
Oh no, that's a good thing. It's like these things, like that's what I love about us. Is we mention many keywords and many important parts that we're going to cover at some point. So it's really everybody paying attention. That's everybody not watching at home right now. Huh?
I told everybody to hang tight with us and feel free to ask questions.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, they'll be here. They know we fuck off for like the first 20 minutes. I think that's why nobody shows up for like the first 15 minutes because they're like, no, they're just.
We like questions. Even those watching after, if you type a question out in the comments, we will see them and we will answer it in another munch.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So I do want to ask, like, not really controversially, but I mean, you could have before scene aftercare. It's just wouldn't call it aftercare. What would you call that?
Prep.
Before care.
Before care, pre-care.
Okay.
I just call it prep.
Yeah, that works. The pre-care prep, but I mean that can be just as essential. Making sure that you're on the same page of this fabric makes you break out. This makes you this makes you feel some kind of weird way because of sensation stuff and
So,
things like that.
one of the most important things to ask your partner before you even start a scene is, what kind of aftercare do you want, and how does that look like for you? Because not everyone's going to have the same idea of, like, go drink water. Okay, do you want flavored water or normal water? Which special pillow do you want? You have to ask them, what does that mean to them, as opposed to just taking a guess.
Yes, it's quite important that you discuss it ahead of time because of what Ray was bringing up about that drop. You might not be able to be in the right mindset or what you might not have the words. Yes, headspace. You might not have the words to tell your partner exactly what you're in need of, and you might not have the energy to get it yourself. So it is very important to have that conversation when we're negotiating. Because there's people in this world who their aftercare is leave me the fuck alone. I don't want to be bothered. Go away. And that's perfectly acceptable. And then there's people like me who want to be cuddled and have forehead kisses, and you got to clean up all the mess everywhere before I see it because I know there's going to be stuff everywhere. I just don't want to see it. And, yeah.
What you got, Ray?
That's also another part of the process of finding a partner that's compatible too, is making sure that whoever you're playing with, both parties or however many are involved, their aftercare routines are compatible. Because if you have somebody that is a leave me the fuck alone and another person that is a physical touch, emotional reassurance, that's not going to go well together. You're going to, you're both going to end up hurt.
But now
that's another thing, because I've seen dungeons and stuff where people are like, yes, I need physical touch. And instead of the person who's there giving it, if they don't feel like it, they have a specific hugger as a job, and that's there.
Right.
You do that job.
But I will also throw out the another fun C word in relationships is compromise. you may be a leave me the fuck alone person. Your partner may be a cuddle me to death kind of person. Figure out between you two through communication how to best serve those needs. If
there are a lot of.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. There are a lot of ways you can compromise, but there's also a certain extent where you don't want to go too far with it. You don't want to give up something that is a necessity.
Mhm.
Like, there are certain things that you can't compromise on.
Right. And that's why it's compromise and never sacrifice. A decent compromise in that situation. So if you're a cuddle me and forehead kisses and I am a leave me alone and let me eat my snack, I can sit there and rub your feet while we watch TV. You're getting your touch. I'm far enough away to not be touched. You're kind of leaving me the fuck alone while watching TV, and I'm still eating my snacks. You can rub feet with one hand, snack in the other. But it's just one of those things where you have to find that common ground. You really do. One person, always being deprived of their physical touch, or one person always being forced to give physical touch, is never going to go well.
So now we know the dungeon's not my experience, but I have got some hearsay experience of aftercare is not a big necessity and priority in these like public dungeon spaces. There's not the area, the time, and you may have to make that for yourselves. Go out and find a quiet space or whatever.
And that's something where you can negotiate beforehand.
That's something that you should actually look into before you go to a dungeon at all. Like, before you get into any scenes there, if they don't have a space set up for aftercare or don't have the supplies like snacks or water or whatnot, and those are things you need to make sure you've brought those with you, or like you can go out to your car or what be it, so that you have that space to decompress in the way you need to.
Right. I don't know. I think typically now, usually you go to a dungeon with somebody so you can play. But if you end up using a service top or a service bottom there, you still want to negotiate and communicate with that person. Although you're kind of strangers in some form. Some of you may know that maybe like your best friend that goes there too, but you still need to know what they need, even in that particular situation. Your aftercare for a impact with cane scene is going to be different from just like a standard bondage aftercare. It's going to vary from scene to scene, of course.
And even day to day, if you did impact play yesterday and then they still want impact today, and their needs might change. Again, it's all about communication. Be open on both ends. What do you need? And ask your partner what they need.
It's important also, if you're going to communicate it beforehand, to be open to adjusting after. It can be kind of easy to go, we have a plan, just step 1, step 2, step 3 for aftercare. But if in the moment the person goes, no, I need something else, you need to be ready to adjust for that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
I like personally, when I'm communicating with a new play partner, to communicate like there's a few different things that I could potentially need after the scene. Like these are the options that I could need. It could be any one of these things. It doesn't have to be this one thing.
Absolutely, and that's the communication aspect. If you only tell them, hey, I need a glass of water after my scene, and then after the scene you like, well, I need my legs rubbed and I need this and I need that, and it's like, well, at what point does your partner lose that responsibility to provide that? If you didn't communicate clearly. What was that, basic?
I believe it entirely depend upon the relationship. I mean, if you're just playmates, and so aftercare only needs to be an hour, that's fine. But if you live with them, then the aftercare is still the hour after the aftercare. It's the day-to-day. So it all depends on at what level you are obliged, and that's something that should be discussed.
And always, if you have like a time limit, always make time for aftercare. Plan it out beforehand. If you have an hour to like fuck around and find out, make at least 15 minutes at the end to do your aftercare before you leave.
Absolutely.
And
To
also,
answer the question that was actually asked, your play partner only really has a responsibility to accommodate the aftercare that's communicated, right? It's not super fair to the other person to be like, I haven't told you I need this, but you should know to provide it anyway.
and that's another thing that I do too when I'm especially playing with somebody new. Like, if I need a specific stuffy afterwards, I bring that with me. If I need a specific kind of water, I bring that with me. Yes, and I will say these things are here that I brought with me that I may need you to get for me later.
Yeah, that has been my case too. When we used to go out to play parties, was to bring my own bag, my own aftercare bag, as well as my, my safety items, first aid kit, safety shears, whatever you may need. Aftercare, butters, lotions,
Spank cell.
Yeah, just bring it along. That way there's no, expecting somebody else to provide for you the things that you need.
Yeah. And that's where there's such a caveat to so many things we talk about, because, as a dominant or as the top, you're responsible for the care of your submissive or your bottom. But that bottom still has a responsibility to care for themselves to make sure that you're set up for success.
Well, the bottom or submissive also has a responsibility to care for the top or dom too. Like, depending on what's been communicated, the dom may need reassurance afterwards that, no, you didn't push me too far, we're okay, or whatever they may need too. Like, everybody's mental health is important.
Agreed.
And that seems to be something that gets pushed to the side when it comes to the aftercare conversation. And we'll cover that shortly. But
so I'm gonna bring up something I really, really kind of don't want to right now.
I like this.
But aftercare for your dom or top after a CNC scene, because it's like, oh my god, I just role played doing this horrible thing to you, and now I've convinced myself that I've actually done this horrible thing to you.
Right. It's give and take. It's absolute give and take. It's making sure that you're both being responsible enough to PRIC, the acronym PRIC, personal responsibility and consensual kink. I like that one, because you do have your own personal responsibilities to care for yourself, but being a responsible person means that you are taking care of the person that you're with, regardless of your position or your role in a scene. You're still responsible for making sure the other person.
It's important to have compassion.
8.5.
Compassion when thinking about aftercare. I almost said role play. Oh my goodness, y'all.
that was last week.
Last week, you guys. Sorry.
So real quick, speaking of all kinds of different topics, Leanne, with this summit, I think they can still get a free ticket now, right? They can get a ticket until it's over.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So with that, is there anybody speaking on aftercare any certain day or anything like that?
Actually, yes. Give me a second to go through the list. It may be tomorrow. Let's see.
It's only a day away.
Yeah. Tomorrow is Baby Lynn. She's talking on more than aftercare. Using the act of care to elevate your power exchange dynamic.
Do you have a time for that?
I think she's following me, so I'm at 11 Mountain
so-
Standard Time, so she'll be at noon Mountain Standard Time, whatever that time is for everybody else.
Okay.
GMT +7 for those in the international community.
Oh. So that'll be 2 o'clock for us on the East Coast.
Thank you.
Yeah,
My math wasn't
catch up
nothing.
after. That sucks. I just thought about that. You have to work tomorrow.
Yeah, but I did the thing that I recommend everybody do, and I purchased the
All Access Pass.
Yep.
All Access Pass, and I get to watch it whenever I want to, which is why we hiked a mountain today instead of sitting. But it was a really pretty day outside today, y'all.
So does that mean if I got an All Access Pass now that I'd be able to go back and watch the ones I already missed?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's a marvelous.
And you get all the bonus material, which is amazing bonus material.
It's
so much.
So amazing.
I think it took me like in total almost a day to download everything.
I'm not through yet. And
I know.
yeah. So if you guys are curious in getting enrolled in this, the link is in my link tree. It's like second right underneath this link. And you can just click and get right to it.
Clink the lick tree.
Click the link.
It's better than look at the country. I mean, what?
Oh, I love it. I got Ray hacking and coughing over here, Jen giggling over there. It's beautiful, good times.
And
With that,
to segue perfectly, sometimes that is part of aftercare is a light banter about a walk in the park or a class that you want to take with your partner later on in the week.
absolutely.
Or a story about a puppy.
Also a great time for a review. Just a basic review. How did it go? What did you like? What didn't you like?
You mean an after action review?
Very much so.
All the soldiers out there just cringed a little, and I apologize for all my brothers and sisters at arms.
Good job. Good way to call some flashbacks there. Good job, Basics. Not even like, serious flashbacks. These fuckers sitting there listening to these higher ups just drone on and on and on about all the shit.
I don't think I could convey that to civilians as much as well as a staff meeting. You know those meetings that could have been an email?
Imagine having one of those every single day or every time you do anything.
If you're deployed, it's like 4 times a day.
Good job shoveling that. Meet up with us over here. You started at 14:23 hours. You finished at 14:30. Now we're gonna have a meeting from 14:45 to 15:30.
Yeah, pretty
and
much.
It's perfectly acceptable to lay out your lifestyle like that. That would make me feel so much better. Oh my goodness.
Oh, good.
Right?
Lavender. Oh, okay. I think it's the same person. Awesome, Lavender.
It is.
Thanks for
It is.
joining. Oh, that's. Oh,
That's my
okay.
partner.
Yep, that's. Yeah. Anytime you want to embarrass Alice, just let me know. I'll pop that comment up. This is the one that had you like all red face like you are now, just remembering it.
Mhm.
Okay, gotcha. Just had to make sure. So yeah, can I just point out that so Lavender said they're bad at math as well. But it's like I am 33 years old now, and time zones still just blow my fucking mind. I'm like, yep. The only thing I remember is that Central Time is an hour behind us, and that's because I used to watch TGIF as a kid, and everything came on at like 8/7 Central. I was like, okay, Central Time is an hour behind us. West Coast, I know they're 3 hours, so I'm assuming Mountain is 2 hours. See, I have to deduce this over time.
Yeah, that was tricky, wasn't it?
Yeah. Can I just say we need to add like some 15-minute increment time zones for like the going north or south in the world? I think that'd be fun too. Just cause a little chaos.
You've lost your mind.
So when
Keep up with the ones we've got.
partner, it goes back to the communication and the ability to, adjust on the fly, because you can't always, say that we're going to need a glass of water. We may need a glass of milk, or we may need a shower. But it's still that in that navigating is highly important and comes back to the communication.
I might say I'm going to need a bucket and a mop.
This week's red face moment is brought to you by Lavender. On top of Alice being a phenomenal dom, Alice is also wonderful at Aftercare.
I would say that it's not on top of, but it's part of.
All of them each. So I am super excited because, I guess, because I will have access to some of those videos and stuff that you get through the summit. So I'll be watching and listening as I get time. You guys aren't going to hear shit from me this week. I'm going to work like 70 hours this week, starting tomorrow.
You'll have plenty of time to listen to the.
Corporate was like, you know what? We're going to send you to another store, and you can have overtime. I'm like, cool. I'm going to abuse the fuck out of that, so you guys don't ever send me somewhere else. And that's what they'll do too. They'll see I had close to 70 hours this week, and they're like, "That's excessive." I'm like, "Yeah, well, me having to go somewhere else was excessive, so we're even."
Lovely.
Let's see. Wouldn't be a munch if we didn't stumble and bumble. Look at that butt.
Did I get your attention then for a short Juniper Gen commercial break? Because it is Aftercare month, and we are talking about Aftercare. You guys better go to the junipergen.com and check out the steak cells. This is an aloe-based cream that is delightful for after spanking, after fun. I gave it to the girl at work the other day because she had an itchy on her leg, and it was like magic, and it took it away. It does have menthol in it, so it's got a really unique, amazing smell. Anybody else want to help me advertise for it?
So this stuff right here, so there's been multiple uses that I've found, not even necessarily kink related. One of my best friends, my boss at work, her daughter uses it to help with chafing when she plays softball. It hydrates the skin and it keeps that lubrication there.
So, yeah.
Also,
guys, I actually sent out into the stores to find this product before I made it because I wanted it myself, and I thought that it would exist. It did not exist. So now it does, and you're welcome.
This Interrupt Ray moment is brought to you by Jen. Go ahead, Ray.
It's okay. It also really, really helps the healing process with bruises, whether they're from kink-related stuff or running into the wall.
And Tony, I don't know where Tony is. I know Tony's having connectivity issues and jumping in the comments lately. Tony discovered, and we have actually rebranded this as well for a non-kink setting, and that's its sole purpose, called Tattoo Tamer. So the combination of the aloe, the tea tree, the vitamin E, all those things with extended use and continuous use, like daily, can revitalize the color in your tattoos. So that's pretty nice. And it also helps with the healing process of the tattoos. So
the same product, though, you guys. So you can buy Spank Salve or Tattoo Tamer. It's like a freaking cure-all. We've actually been considering rebranding it and giving it a new name as a kink cure-all of some sort. I don't know. If you guys have any ideas, feel free to blurt them out.
I wish they didn't have cocoa butter in them.
Sorry, Charlie.
I know, right? See?
You'll have to throw one in my order there when you finish my flogger.
I will. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You should also plug your butter a little bit too, because that helps a lot with a lot of aftercare stuff too.
Plug my butt what? My brat butter.
Your butter. Yeah.
So the brat butter is cocoa butter, shea butter. It's all natural ingredients. What else do we use it? I have to look. I'm sorry.
So I will point out
Almond
that,
oil and coconut oil.
so with the brat butter, it's also something I'm looking at for alternatives, especially like in Alice's situation where there is an allergy there.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember when I first started using it, I'd taken a couple samples to work and we had just made it and stuff like that. And one of my friends at work was like getting ready to use it and she's allergic to nuts. And I was like, no, hell no. Don't put that on you at all. And she was like, well, it's only a certain kind of nut. And I was like, it's almonds. So don't try that. She's like, it's just a little spot.
Not gonna be me.
And her hand starts getting red and breaking out. I'm like, see, idiot.
I fortunately checked the ingredients before I tried to use any that was given to me.
So I would like to try to find like a hypoallergenic version or like a different version that's more like vanilla based without the cocoa butter. Maybe one that is a, it lacks
olive oil is a good alternative that's very good for your skin.
Now, we didn't pull it out this year just because I suck. It has nothing to do with Jen. Our Valentine's Day edition is quite fantastic. You still can't use it, Alice. I'm sorry. It's a different kind of oil that we use for the scent, and it's an unrefined cocoa butter, so you really can't use that. So with that, it gives like, those Valentine's Day chocolates, the orange ones, the orange cream, whatever. You break it open and you smell it. It's exactly what it smells like. And it's my favorite.
That sounds delightful, but I'll have to take your word for it.
Well, put on gloves, rub it on your partner, and then you can just smell it.
Being around chocolates.
Okay, so we do have a couple questions real quick. Lavender says, so I know the general idea of what DOMs do for aftercare. What can a sub do for aftercare for a DOM? And before anybody says it depends on the relationship or the dynamic, we know that.
Of course it does.
Specific things.
Right.
Go ahead, Asics.
All right. For those that weren't in here earlier when Dream brought it up, they had mentioned this and it was amazing, was the simple fact that sometimes a Dom needs to be reassured in an emotional setting of the fact that they didn't go too far, they didn't push limits, they didn't hurt anyone past what was wanted. If as a sub, if you came to your Dom and said, look, what happened was amazing, you did all the right things, that goes miles. It might be more than that. You communicate with your Dom. But as someone who has stopped quite a bit, this emotional check, because we step outside of our tender, loving, caring self to do that, to bring that level that is required. So sometimes we need to remember that we are that caring person and be reassured of that. So I think that's just one minor way. But again, talk, communicate, converse, discuss, debate if you have to, but keep the communication lines open and ask what they need. Go ahead, Ray.
Another thing too, on top of that, sometimes just a simple letting your Dom know that you trust them, you still trust them enough to go to them for your aftercare needs helps shift that mindset a little bit too. Like, we're still okay. I trust you to bring me through this because you got me through that.
Yeah. In addition to that, depending on the Dom, you can do a lot of the same things you do for a sub. If you will have like a particularly physically strenuous activity, a massage with an oil or a lotion could help your Dom come out of that headspace comfortably. Making sure that both people are hydrated, and if there's like a need for snacks or anything, that those are available.
There's some really cool massage tutorials that come with that All Access Kink Summit Pass.
Oh yeah, you told me you found one.
Yeah, foot massage.
Yes, Ray.
Another thing to remember too is sometimes a submissive may not be in the correct headspace to be able to do any of those things right away. But as soon as you are, step up and do what you can.
So now let me ask you a very specific question. I'm not sure how many of you. It's terrible on me. I know at least 2 of you, 3. Most of you, at least, are either submissives or switches, or have been one or the other. With that, so I'll start with Jen since she's right next to me. What's something specific that you would do for your dom, even if it weren't me? If you've negotiated whatever, it's something that you enjoy doing, they said they'd accept that. What's that one thing that you would do for your dom after a scene to help them?
We've already covered all the really good things. So food.
Oh yeah, way to my heart is snacks.
Hydration and food, because that's what I like. So you're getting some too.
Look,
it's very important to me to feel better after.
Before Ray explodes with anticipation over here, let's go ahead and see what Ray's got. Oh wait, you know what? Just to torture you just a little bit. Hold on just a second. So lavender, yes, shea butter does help. That was one of the questions that Lavender asked. It said, does shea butter help? Absolutely. So the cocoa butter is just
Mister.
I was going to say real quick, the cocoa butter is just an extra additive that adds an extra softness to it. So yes, you can absolutely use shea butter. And Ray, how about you, Jeff?
For real this time?
For reals this time.
So there's actually 2 things that I really like to do personally. Because I know that I'm one that isn't in a good enough headspace immediately after a scene, I like to prepare things ahead of time. Like if the person that I'm playing with has a particular snack or something that they like, I make sure that it's right there before we get started. I make sure their aftercare needs that they would need from me are able to be met without me doing anything. Or the other thing I like to do is, like, if we take a shower after a scene, washing them. That's my other thing that I like to do. I like to wash my partner.
Me too. That's a great answer.
How about you, Miss Leanne?
Aftercare can be.
We are definitely about cuddles, and if it's like a heavy impact scene, once I'm kind of in my right headspace, then I can, give him a massage his arms, his back, his shoulders. But we're all about the cuddles. Like, we just want to lay down and cuddle together and maybe nap.
I like that.
So how about you, Day6? I'm not sure if you've ever been a switch or not.
I have. I mean, when I was brought into the community, it was par for the course. Before you could learn to top, you had to learn how to be a bottom, and you've got to be able to play both roles well to be well in a scene. But that's just the way I was brought in. I was brought in under different circumstances than many others. When I bottom for someone, or when I've done, one of the greatest things is just laying there with your head on their chest and stroking up and down their belly, just a calming, normal. I can't say normal. Calming, non-sexual, human touch, rehumanizing your partner back to, hey, we're humans. It's okay to feel. It's okay to just exist. And I've always been a cuddler, whether it's in my vanilla life or as a dom or as a sub. So I'm very tactile. I got to be hands-on. And I love just laying and basking in the afterglow in silence, just touching and being nice with each other.
And how about you, Alice?
To follow up on the in silence part, when I am bottoming or subbing and I get into subspace, when I come out of that because of the tism, I tend to be nonverbal for a little bit. Like it's really hard for me to talk after a scene where I'm not the dom. So like we'll either lay in bed and like cuddle. I don't normally do like the belly strokes, but like I'll play with hair or grab their hand and have them play with my hair. Once we get language back, we'll check in, and then usually it's like drinks, snacks, water specifically.
You could never go wrong with snacks. Speaking of, everybody that's got one, take your drink.
But Alice, I am also pretty much nonverbal in subspace. So I feel that that's why I do this stuff before, because I can't talk about it. I can't English the words.
I was gonna say that's actually probably a good intro into us talking about subspace and what that means, and because we're dabbling in it already, and we've all answered the question. I can't read these little words.
Because since I'm not a switch, but being a sadist, sometimes I top and I make sure to clean him up, bring him something to eat or drink or anything else he asks for. I'll see in that kind of situation. So with Jen and I, like being in a relationship and being together, like we talked about earlier, the aftercare doesn't necessarily mean after the scene immediately, but we can renegotiate in a sense by just communicating. Hey, can I get some water? Hey, can you grab me some coffee? Hey, will you rub my feet? She loves feet touches when she's laying there getting ready to go to bed. It's stuff like that. Like those things, like when you're in a more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Nesting or.
There you go. Yeah, when you're in a more a relationship that's closer on the nesting side, whether it's an actual romantic relationship or somebody that you have a sexual relationship consistently, then you can break that rule of negotiate everything first. That rule can be bent a little bit, not necessarily broken, but bent. Because those things do change.
It depends on the levels that you're doing in play.
Yeah, I think that would apply to anyone that like there's a certain level of comfortability with and a certain level of familiarity. Like if you know each other well enough, things can be more flexible than if you don't know each other as well. It has to be more predefined.
Absolutely. Real quick, Lady Trish, I did send you a link if you want to hop up on the panel. I know you were looking for it, and I forgot to drop it to you the other day or earlier. Lavender says they're hopping out to make the bed and settle down. You're wonderful. Thank you for being here.
Oh.
I'll let Day6, you look like you enjoy reading stuff like that to Alice. Read that last little bit to Alice.
You're a very good boy and wake me up for snugs. Oh, that's a new shade of red. I love it. You wear it so well.
I'm told red suits me.
So, it does. It does, definitely. Dream said they'll be back later.
I have questions. They will be answered on Discord. It's fine.
Says they really do.
I don't know that you can see it on the camera, but my glasses are starting to fog up.
There's one way we can find out. A little bit. Okay, there you go. See, I've learned I need to start torturing you guys with kind acts. Instead of being a dick, just be overly wonderful and fun. Yes, and absolutely, you can tell they're blushing without seeing their face. Now that sounds like a absolutely loving partnership. Oh yeah, good job. That's good stuff. That's
what did you want to say, Ray?
You know what? I think let me justify this real quick. So Ray says Ray doesn't English very well sometimes. So if we interrupt you, it gives you a second to collect your thoughts, and then you can say it. That's all.
It does not help like that. It does not work like that.
No, because then sometimes I forget all the words I wanted to do in the first place.
Fair.
Yeah, and when we interrupt, that gives it another squirrel moment. So then the whole train's been derailed, new thought replaces, and where'd it go? What's the score again? Where'd it go? Squirrel.
It has already been established. I do not have a train of thought. I have a Roomba of thought. It takes off in random directions, spins in circles, gets stuck in dark corners for longer than it should.
So we have a very special guest that I enjoy talking to, and I feel like a total asshole when I say this. I missed their show the other day. You and I both did, Jen. I think it was on the 17th. And
I was wondering about that, but
Lady Trish.
Hi,
Hello. Actually, we didn't have the show the 17th.
See, good. Redemption.
We ended up not having it. I injured my ribs, so
That's right.
I wasn't really feeling up to it.
I misspoke. I didn't forget. I went and I was looking for it and I couldn't find it. And, so.
That and my birthday was this week, so we ended up having.
Late birthday.
I ended up kidnapping Phil and taking him out of town, and
Well, that sounds beautiful.
Your birthday, that's awesome.
That's the good kind of relationship. You get taken somewhere on your partner's birthday. I'm down for that.
Yeah, we spent Valentine's Day actually door dashing together. Phil found it kind of hot because I dressed up all sexy and guys were upping my tips after receiving their orders at their doors.
Yes.
Look, people look at me like I'm crazy, but when I go DoorDash, I still dress like I would when I was a server. I am still in my 3-piece. I am still looking good as fuck because it matters. So.
Yeah, and I do too.
So
but
how
for
far away is
Valentine's
your
Day,
DoorDash?
I went in a flowered shirt number that was see-through, so my bra could be seen through it. And then my skirt barely covered my bum. So it was like every time I got in and out of the car, everybody was flashed. And I went pantyless that day too.
So you were doing like the reverse porn videos rather than being the delivery and inviting the driver in. You were the driver showing up. Right.
I had one guy that was answered the door with his gaming headset on, and when he took one look at me, immediately rushed out his door and stopped me midway up the stairs so that I was like lower than him, and then he leaned out forward to grab his food and his eyes went down at my cleavage, and then he looks up at me, makes eye contact, gives me a big smile, takes his food, goes inside, and then like 2 minutes later I got pinged that he upped my tip from $2 to $12.
Nice.
Oh man, Ray, you know what?
Milking it on Valentine's Day.
That's such a good time. I'm not gonna lie. What did we do on Valentine's Day? We didn't do shit.
So, you know what? This is a point that I wanted to bring back earlier, and I didn't want to interrupt, but tipping your servers is proper aftercare.
Yes, it is. Very much.
They
I'm
have
gonna
been
be
your
the asshole
sub for the
serving this
entire
as-
time.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, and Phil kept telling me that it was turning him on so much watching all these guys check me out. He said because it was like he was sitting there thinking, yeah, but I get to take her home.
So to the folks that are watching right now, either as a dom or sub, if you would like to add that in, or if you're not familiar with the world of kink, thank you for joining and learning with us. If you're watching right now, if you want to drop a comment, what's your favorite way to give aftercare, or what's your favorite way to receive aftercare? I'd love to get some more input on that. That'd be great.
Yeah, I kind of jumped in part of the way, so I wasn't quite sure exactly where you guys were, headed with all this, but I chimed in because I tend to be one of those rare subs that's also a sadist. I am in no way a top or dom. I don't desire to be. But occasionally that sadist side of me comes out, and Phil quite enjoys it when it does. But then that puts me as the top, and I am responsible for making sure he gets what he needs afterwards.
What kind of stuff does that require?
What was that?
What kind of stuff does that require?
Sometimes Phil gets quite nonverbal afterwards, much like, and I've had conversations on chats with other doms that have said that they've had the pleasure of being able to experience that side of things with a sub that's also a sadist. But I'm told that that's kind of rare out there. But a lot of times it's just the same as what he would provide for me. I need to make sure he's hydrated, need to make sure that he's okay afterwards. If I inflict any wounds, I need to make sure they're bandaged and, salve put on them. Just make sure he's cleaned up and, just stuff like that, a normal dom would do for a sub. But it's just a little bit different because it's not something that comes natural to me. So it took a lot of learning for me to learn how to do that. For him when we do have moments like that.
And is it to assume that it took a lot of communication, a lot of sitting down and talking about it and the feelings involved therein and such. Just
Yes.
Is that a exception?
Yes, communication was very big with all of that. When it first started, honestly, I was in tears when I first realized I was a sadist because I drew blood, found out I was turned on by it, and then burst into tears. It took a lot of communication for him to tell me it was okay. But the communication aspect, him as a dom, neither one of us are a switch, by the way. So, and the dom sub is completely a part of our personality as well. We live it 24/7. So to have that, he said he's never had that happen with him where he's gotten with a sub that was a sadist. So it did take some adjustment for both of us. A lot more trust on his part to step out of that dom role for that. So there was a lot of communication that went into, negotiating all of this. And also with teaching me how to give aftercare and everything, it was a lot of back and forth. There were many times where once he was verbal and able to express, he would remind me that I failed to give aftercare, and we would talk about it. So it was a lot of learning on my end too, as well.
Very nice. Alice?
I do want to add in, because you mentioned that when you went sadist, you had to take top. That's not always the case. You can be a sadist and still be the bottom in a scene. Similarly, you can be the top in a scene and be a masochist, which is the space I usually occupy.
Which is so interesting. It flips all the dynamic-y things on top of their heads. And a lot of people, I've been guilty of it myself, but a lot of people intertwine those words of dom and top and submissive and bottom. And it's not necessarily that way every time. That gets into the more nuancy things. I think it'd be a good topic for discussion one day.
See, I'm relatively new to all this kink. I've only been in the lifestyle for about 18 months. Was never into it before I met Phil. So I'm still learning a lot. And when I went out there, everything I was researching and studying about myself, when I started looking into things for sadist and sub, there was almost nothing out there to tell me. Everything I was reading was telling me that if I was a sadist, then I must also be a dom. And I'm going, no, because I know I'm not a dom. I have no desire to dominate in any way, shape, or form. So I knew that wasn't the case. And it was like, I just kept reaching out. And it was like, asking people, but I felt so alone and so, I don't know, like abnormal, because everything you read out there says that doms must be sadists and subs must be masochists. And it's not the case.
Hard relate, because I ran into a similar lack of like representation, for a better word. Like, it's everything that you see about doms, and that's the space I'm usually in, says that if you enjoy pain, you have to stop being the dom. And you can turn that into, like, the last time I had a top who was, or a sub who was a sadist, like we gamified it. It was orders and tasks, and they would go, like, it would be a question of their stamina, like physically how long could they go before they got tired. And the longer they went, the more intense their reward was.
And see, like, that's, shout out to Sunny Megatron. I remember listening to her talk about this on an episode once. About
I love you.
The topic from the bottom kind of thing, where they, that's got a negative connotation to it usually, but you can do those things. You absolutely can. There's no right way to do kink. Just like I say with non-monogamous relationships, there's wrong ways, but there's no right way.
Yeah, see, I say when it comes to sessions with Phil and I, that I top when I go into my sadist mode, simply because Phil just lets me do what I need to do. Say, he's a masochist as well. And I know he said he always felt a little out of place and more wanted to identify as a pleasure dom, because he wasn't all into the, inflicting pain either. He struggles with, sometimes thinking he's being too harsh with me when it comes to spankings and other things. But it's, he's always struggled with that part because he's never really been into the sadistic side.
Right.
So with him, it was the same way. He's a dom, but yet everybody is like, how can you be a dom if you're a masochist? um, so it's just, and he said it just didn't work with other relationships. He said with me, and it's probably because of the way our dynamic is, it works better with us because he's a masochist and I'm a sadist. It just works a lot easier than it has with past relationships with him.
Absolutely right.
Oh, I forgot.
Hey, you know what helps me when I go to talk? One thing, like if I go to talk and like somebody else is picking up the conversation real quick, if like I will like visually hold it in my fingers like off screen, so I'm like I'll look at it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's what I'm holding. It works for me.
Oh yeah, I remembered. Sorry, oh fuck, there it went again. No, nothing nothing that we are saying applies to everyone. Everything in kink is highly individual because humans are highly individual.
Of course.
Yes. Yes, and that is so true.
I don't know if y'all saw me over here earlier going back and forth in my head, but I'm going real sassy and real bratty. Kink is customizable.
Phil signed me up for a chat in one of our groups this weekend, and it's full of littles and brats just going haywire, and all of the doms are expressing what did we get ourselves into, starting a littles kink chat.
Oh man,
the chat isn't supposed to officially start till Thursday, but they're just adding people to the group early. And us littles are already at it. We're not even waiting until Thursday to torment the doms.
Of course, brats never wait.
No, because they have to brat because that's what brats do. But how does one tame a brat from long distance?
Don't.
I couldn't answer that one because I've never done a long distance kink relationship.
I was about to answer that one, but Ray snapped.
I got you. I'll fix this. You ready? Okay, now we can do it. How do we?
So we don't have a munch about that shit.
For a long distance relationship, something that I've done and would recommend doing is denial over time. So be like, all right, this week you can't touch yourself until Saturday night on our call. And then they get punishments for each time they change that. And the punishment, just make it longer. It's even better if you have, like, for long distance, if you've got, like, the remote control toys that you can control from your phone on the other side of the fucking country.
Oh, yeah.
And go, well, you didn't listen this week? Turn the toy off.
Oh, man. That's the good stuff there. I know you can still hear me. Love you, Ray.
Is she over there pouting because you teased her and turned her off to prove a point?
A little bit. It's okay, though. If I don't tease Ray a little bit, she doesn't feel loved. So,
does someone want to define sub drop? And we can.
Absolutely. I think that's a wonderful thing that we can jump into next. Good message for me there, the private chat. There we go. But real quick, speaking of what you guys were all talking about, I'd love to talk to you, Trish, and you, Alice, and anybody else that has like an unconventional kind of dynamic combo. Like you said, you're a sub, but you're a sadist. Like those things like that hard to find combination. I'd love to talk to y'all about that kind of stuff because that's a really good article. That would be a great fucking article. So yeah,
absolutely.
There. Give credit to both of you. Absolutely. I don't think so. We're kind of jumping around. We always do. Let's talk about drop. A lot of people may not know what drop is exactly. Would one of my subs like to explain sub drop? Wait, before we do sub drop, can we explain subspace?
I have a hard time explaining that, and I don't know if it's just because I live at 24/7, so I seem to always be in subspace, so I don't really know how to tell the difference. But
how about you, Ray? You got an explanation?
So for me personally, subspace is that level that you get to in your mind where nothing else exists but the moment and submitting in that moment. Like it's an intense high. It's that intense adrenaline level where the only way to exist is in that moment.
It's almost like dissociation from yourself.
Yes,
But
not really.
It can get a little like dissociation and almost a little like being in survival mode, but like consensually.
An extended flight or fight response.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's a lot about what I've read to it. Is it almost takes you back to just a primal mentality, or your lizard brain, as it's called in like psychology and stuff like that. It puts you in that, like, the only thing that matters is your moment right now, and making sure that you embrace the moment you're in, but also find a way to get back to the reality of where you're at. It's a pleasurable struggle with your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's also very freeing for me personally, because in that headspace, I'm no longer worried about a lot of things. Like, I'm not worried about what I look like. Yeah. I'm not worried about what I look like. I'm not worried about if I move wrong and fart. Like,
which those things happen.
Enjoying. Yes, they do. But it's freeing, because when nothing else matters, that is your only focus.
I do have a good line, toot my own horn. I always feel like one of those egotistical assholes when I read something out of my article that I really liked.
I mean, you are, but continue.
That's beyond the article reading, I guess. But but it says something about, so right here it says, as a submissive, this is where you don't have a choice but to have complete trust in your job.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I imagine the first time any of you guys hit subspace, it's quite a scary and intense situation until you learn more about what's going on.
Well, it can also be a very vulnerable.
Yes.
It can be a very vulnerable headspace too, because a lot of submissives, when they're in that headspace, do not have the ability to say no.
Day 6, I've seen you unmute your mic, so that means you have something good to say.
Oh, well, I'm glad you put such weight in my words. When I did do the first time I was able to put that full trust in, the freeing experience was wonderful. And in that subspace, that rise of emotion is as your first adrenaline rush, I would say, is the way I wanted to kind of bring it to an analogy. If you remember the first time you were just scared until your asshole puckered, but give it a more positive connotation. Imagine if your asshole puckered for a good thing. There you go.
Like that.
I'm not talking about a sour owl or a puckered owl.
Or like that feeling immediately after your asshole puckers, where you're like, oh shit, I survived that.
Now that is a perfect analogy right there. I've had one of those moments. Car was stopped in the middle of the road. My buddy, I was following him. We're going, roughly the speed limit, not 10, 15 over like we usually do this time. But they're stopped, no lights, no turn signal, nothing. He shoots off to the right side of the road in his Jeep and goes off road. I'm like, oh fuck! I realized what happened. I shoot to the wrong side of the road because I wasn't going off road in the car I was in, and I swooped right around them, probably within like 50 feet of the car that was coming head on. And then that sudden realize I made it. I didn't wreck. I'm not going to die. Holy shit. Was so exciting. By the time we got to his house, which was another quarter mile away, dude, I was so pumped. I was like, you want to go do some fun shit now? Like,
and you probably had a little wet spot in your drawers.
Probably. I don't remember that aspect of it. We tend to blot out that part, but probably because it was very slow motion and very real. So, like, oh shit, am I going to survive? Okay, it's looking promising. Okay, I did it. Good. We're good.
So now that we've explained subspace, let's explain sub drop.
Before we jump into that one, I do want to mention that I wrote about a little bit about top space. Trish may have experience in this as well, where you are the submissive, but you're serving that top role. Like you said, with impact play, with bringing out that sadist side of yourself while still in that submissive role. It's kind of a little bit different. The line I've got here, this is where submissive has control of their life and will out dominate anybody that tries to interfere with. It's almost like a false sense of dominance, if that makes sense. Would that be a decent way to explain that?
I think I've experienced that more than what I've experienced what everybody else is describing. The closest I got to feeling like what Ray and all of them were describing, I think, is like when I first got with Phil. Prior to Phil, I had to always control everything. It was like my whole life, if I wasn't in control, it was really scary. But to give up that control to somebody that I was trusting, it was kind of exhilarating. And I do remember a time when Phil and I actually started talking into kink and into what it meant to be a sub and everything. And I remember looking at him and be like, I want to do this 24/7. I was like, I want this feeling all the time. And he just looked at me completely shocked. But he was fine with that. And that's when we started discussing, the fact that being a sub is not a role for me. It's actually part of my personality. I can go back throughout my lifetime and see my whole life. How should I put it? Everybody always said I had the knack for being a leader, but never the desire to pursue it. So the skills were there, but I always shied away from it. I never took a leadership position unless it was forced on me. And any kind of leadership positions in life was always a struggle. So to be able to go into a relationship where I could just be myself and not have to deal with all of that was kind of freeing and exhilarating. So I think that's the closest I ever got to like feeling the way they do. But that feeling that you just described about that false sense of dominance that goes on after I've done, with a session with Phil and everything, I have felt that quite a bit.
And I'll put it maybe in a non-scene metaphor, simile. Yeah. I'm not sure which way it's going to go, but think it's going to be a simile because we use the word like. So when there's a moment where kids refrain from using cuss words all the time, but every year my son gets to, there's a phrase from Game of Thrones that I used to love, and he, bow to your king, bow you shits. And he said that to me when he was like 2. And I thought it was hilarious. So every year on my birthday, that's the one time he gets to absolutely say that unrestricted word. And it's that sense of power, even though he doesn't have it, even though like if I wanted to reject that, I could, he still gets that one moment where he feels like he is just as equal of an adult as I am. So,
I do that with my kids.
A non-sexual way. What is it, right?
I do that with my kids. I do that with my kids when we play cards. Like, if you're going to play cards with the grown-ups, you can talk shit with the grown-ups.
Yep.
See,
as soon as we leave that table, you're back to kid language.
See, you keep I think a little confusion is Phil and I don't actually have rehearse scenes. We don't actually have actual scenes we set up. Our sadistic play, everything else like that is just kind of organically intertwined into our romance. So normal lovemaking sessions will turn into intense sadistic sex or primal play, or it's not something we set up for. It just happens in the course of our romance. But on those moments to where I am able to get him to quiver at my touch or to do anything that would say that he's at my mercy, I get this huge sense of pride. Like, yeah, I did that to him. This big, strong Dom submitted to me. I'm like, yes. So yeah, I do get that feeling sometimes.
Oh, for sure. So those are the positive things. Those are the fun ways of feeling that, in the space setting, and we are focusing more on the subspace than a dom space. We can touch on that later if you guys would like when we talk about dom drop. but there's also the sub drop that we've kind of hinted around a couple times. I've had moments where my partner felt so much pleasure and a good time, and it was just so well put together of a scene, or just even just a general sex session, that there are tears, but it's not like they're upset. It's just something they can't control. So that kind of leads into that sub drop. It's a good thing, but it's a bad thing at the same time. It's a very, very vulnerable moment.
Yeah, I had one of those with Phil the other night, and kind of freaked him out a little bit because I have not had very many of those, and I was in complete and total meltdown, just bawling my eyes out. And all I wanted at that moment was for him to just pull me in his arms and hold me. That was it.
Yes, Daisy.
So, like with anything in life, once you go so far one way, the pendulum must swing. So when it comes to this exhilarating, freeing, liberating feeling that we're talking about with subspace and in the playtime and that wonderful moment, these emotional, releases are the pendulum swinging the other way. And when you don't allow that space, it tends to build up, and it can lead to those explosions, those complete meltdowns. And I'm not saying that every time, if you allow yourself that space to do it, that it will prevent a meltdown, but being aware that this can happen and having these aftercare tools help you through that time, help you through that emotional lull, that energy lull, whether it be physical, emotional, spiritual, that energy will fall back down, and you've got to bring it back up to normal. So this is the entire point of aftercare, is to remember that even though we have these great, wonderful emotions, it's going to take some other care.
Absolutely. Ray?
Sorry, I'm going to sound nerdy for a second here because I like doing that. From a scientific standpoint, the reason for the intense high is the release of endorphins in your brain. And when those endorphins are flowing, that's when you get that high. But immediately afterwards, when they're gone, your brain is kind of like a, what the fuck? Where did all the happy chemicals go? So that's why the aftercare is there, to reintroduce those low levels of the dopamine and serotonin to help level you out, so you don't completely, so you don't completely crash.
So, Leanne, I know, like I said, we've discussed your relationship and kink coach and life coach and all these situations. Well, look at there's a dream. How, as a dom, how would I best serve my submissive to keep that pendulum from swinging so wide?
Definitely communicating it in advance, pre-planning, making sure you have your aftercare kit ready. For me, I had a scene that got more intense than I anticipated, and add to it not only the endorphins that were going crazy from a bunch of different stimuli, but on top of it, I also had a menopausal hot flash that hit at the same time, and that took me up and over the edge. And I hit sub drop while still attached to the cross.
Oh, wow.
And it was it was unexpected because I felt the hot flash coming, and that was the last thing I said was, "Oh, hot flash." And a few minutes later, I was on the floor going, "I'm fine. I'm fine."
What you got, Alan?
Fine, you were out. And I was like, what? But it wasn't anticipated in our aftercare because we didn't see it coming, but we should have, I guess.
Absolutely.
So, Mr., you asked what you can do to keep the pendulum, as it were, from swinging so widely. I don't think you can or you should try to keep that from happening. You should just be prepared for it. So like if you know what sub drop is and you know that it's a risk and you're the dom in the situation, you can make sure that you've got what they need for their aftercare and you have a plan in place. Then you've talked about it ahead of time so that if it happens, you're there, you know what to do, and you're not like, tell me what you need to someone who can't communicate.
Right. Ray, then Trish, go ahead.
Sorry. Another thing too, that's why a lot of people use snacks and hydration as part of their aftercare, because on a physical level, your body can all of a sudden have a blood sugar drop, or you sweat a lot, or things like that, and bringing your body physically back to a state of homeostasis can help with the headspace too.
Trish?
Well, I also okay. Sorry.
Go Trish, sorry.
Okay. I also don't think every instance can be prepared for. The incident of subdrop I went through, and Phil's usually pretty good about covering all of my aftercare, making sure that I stay level. But Jen knows a little bit this because I've been asking her for tons of information. But Phil and I have been thinking about branching into polyamory and playing. And I am curious, but I'm still struggling with some aspects of it. So we have started with more like virtual and role playing scenarios to help ease me into the idea and to see how I will react and, things like that. Well, after one particular role playing session went over really, really well, Phil mentioned that as part of that role playing, I had him imagine I was someone else to see how I would react to him having sex with someone else, and to basically, treat me like I was someone else. Well, after that, he said that a reclaiming had to be done, that was how it is when you go out and play. And it was actually the reclaiming session that threw me into subdrop. The emotions were so intense. I was not prepared for them. And I don't think he was quite prepared for how deep of a subdrop I would go through during that either. So I think sometimes there's just no predicting or even trying to stop it. It just depends on the situation you're in and what causes it.
Okay. So Dream, how about you, dear? I see you munching on stuff, and that's that server thing I like to do is when people are eating, I'll ask them a question. How, as a sadist and a dominant, how do you help your submissives or your bottoms maintain? Like I said, Alice, I kind of misspoke. You don't want to stop that pendulum, but you want to get it to stop swinging back and forth so fast. You want to try to balance it out as quickly as possible. How do you personally keep your subs from experiencing too high of or too deep of a drop?
So one of the things that I think about quite often is even in daily life, once you have a really like good happy moment, you're gonna have that lashback afterwards where it's like, okay, I did this great thing, now what? And so it's so important to check in with yourselves before you check in with anyone else. Make sure you're okay. Then then you have the mind space to be able to say, hey, what can I do for you as the other person? Because if you can't function yourself, there's no way you're going to be able to function for them.
You can't pour from an empty cup.
Exactly. Fantastic.
Damn, Ray.
So I'm not going to bring that comment up. I'm not sure how it may make some people feel, but that is not really good for your aftercare. That's going to be the opposite of care. It's going to be probably doing more harm to yourself than good. A good alternative to fluids you can drink, tiger water. Yeah. So just be aware of that. But then again, I can't say, not to yuck anybody's yum, if that's part of your aftercare and you're okay with it, and it's
That
negotiated.
sounds more like it would go along with a ritual type of.
Mm-hmm.
The
Don't make that
entire
your only
vampire community for the ball that we're going to
right.
would probably use that as aftercare.
But you know what I'm saying? Like that's where I can't say that it's not a good idea, because it may be what works for you. It may be what balances you out, or your partner. So there's that possibility. Hi, Drain. Glad you made it. Glad to see you. Yeah, we've just been fucking off for like an hour and a half waiting on you. We don't.
Sorry.
I'm just kidding. But you are.
With,
yeah, so we're actually headed to a part where I need you here anyway.
Oh, okay.
So it's wonderful. We talked about sub drop. We've talked about subspace. We touched a little bit on top space. But now I want to kind of cover the dom space and the dom drop. Those two tend to be neglected when it comes to the conversation of subspace, aftercare, pre-care, all those things. So would you like to elaborate on those, or do you want me to lead you with some questions?
Please lead me with questions.
All right, so what is dom space?
The space you get in before you play and during your play that gives you the empowerment to have that mindset that you want to have during a scene. Like, you have to decide which role you want to play, because there's a whole bunch of different dom roles, like master and dominant and like caretaker and all those other roles that you don't have to play, but you have to choose one that you want to play, and then you have to get into that character that you've selected. And for some people, that's creating a whole nother persona and mindset. For others, it's just, okay, I'm going to be the one who's doing this, and that's what I'm doing at this moment in time.
Okay. So for any of the vanilla folks that watch or are watching or will watch, if you're not in the DS lifestyle or BDSM or kink in any way, headspace. Just use that word. What's your headspace for the scene? How do you balance out your headspace after a session of whatever it may be? So how about that one? How do you deal with the dom drop? I know we kind of touched on drops and drops.
I had a question real quick.
Go ahead.
And it's a question that I'm gonna add for both sides of this. What is something that you might use to help yourself into this?
Get into?
Into what?
Space.
Oh, it's really unique for everyone. I like to use tools and, the wonderful toys that are from Juniper Jen. But yeah, it's really about toys and thinking about, like, what is my fantasy today? What would I like to do today? How would I like to treat my partner? How would I like my partner to treat me? Do I want to be spoiled? Do I want to be giving punishments? What exactly do I want today? And then what do they want as well?
Yes, right.
One thing that does help a lot of people is specific articles of clothing. Like if I'm wearing a collar, that's an automatic, okay, this is what's going on. Or seeing my partner wear a specific article of clothing, like if my partner's wearing a specific belt, things like that.
I would imagine
I've heard that too. It's like I was watching someone talk about this the other day, and they're like, hey, I've left you an outfit in the room over there. If you feel like doing this with me, come out with that outfit on. If not, then we're going to drop the subject completely and go on with our lives.
Absolutely. I mean, it sounds like, something like the article of clothing would be a good especially in a dom headspace, for pro doms. It seems like, because pro doms see that more of usually it's more of a job type deal. So they go in, they know what we're going to do. Whereas
put the uniform on for the day.
Put your uniform on. It's the sexy ass uniform. So
that's also why a lot of like public dungeons and stuff will have different colored wristbands for different things that you are or aren't into or are or aren't consenting to.
okay, and I've always been on board with that, like play parties, poly parties, speed dating, all those things. I think there should be a simple code that comes with a label, a little legend that says blue means this, red means this, green means this, and then you just have to know what the 4 colors are, and then you can walk up to any person that has the color you're looking for and go from there. So,
not really colorblind friendly, but we'll evolve.
well, we'll make that dark gray means this, light gray means this, medium gray means this.
So I remember when one of the individuals who, we're friends with said he was colorblind, I tried to use a fruit system. Like, okay, the apple is red, so we're going to use apple for this. Banana is yellow, so we're going to use that for that. And then I think it was like pear was green, so we're using that too.
Really throw a kink in the wheel and use one that says grapefruit if you use an orange. Yeah.
Or tangerine.
Throw a mango in there. Part red, part green.
Get some real fruity shit going on.
There you go.
I know we're all fruity, but that doesn't mean that that dom drop and sub drop is still something to be aware of.
Absolutely. And dom drop is as important. I'm not going to say more or less important because it's just as equally as important as a sub drop. As a dom comes out of that headspace from whether it's an intense scene, whether it's something new they're trying, they could be questioning themselves. They could be, worried they hurt you. They could need their own special moment of meditation. If you communicate, negotiate, navigate through it all, then you know what you need and what to expect. Now, we've all said pretty much now that you have to still expect the unexpected. So be prepared, because I know we kind of were at first, it's not once you negotiate something, if they want this after, but that's the beauty of kink scenes and stuff like that. You can renegotiate as you go.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
exactly. You don't want to do impact, even though we talked about doing impact. That's fine. Let's negotiate this before we move on to it. Why are you not feeling that? How do we move on? What do we do from there? And it's just picking those things. Yes, Trish?
I wanted to chime in from someone that lives a 24/7 lifestyle. Dom drop can happen even when it's not even part of a scene or any kind of sexual interaction. Just the everyday life responsibilities that are expected of a dom, especially in a 24/7, is enough to spiral them into a depression and into dom drop. And that's something unique amongst doms that most subs don't have to deal with, because we don't have to deal with all the stresses that the doms have to put themselves through as being a 24/7 responsible for another person, and that taking on that role 24/7, that puts a lot of stress on them that they take off of the sub, and that alone is enough to put a dom into dom drop.
Yeah, right.
So subs should always educate themselves on what dom drop is, so that they can reach out and try and help their dom when they notice their dom is struggling with it.
Okay. Right.
I would like to both agree and disagree with you, Trish. I agree that is a thing that a lot of 24/7 DOMs experience, but it can also be a thing that is experienced for a 24/7 submissive. It can be like, am I living up to to the requirements of my DOM? Am I doing all of the acts of service that I should be doing? Am I pleasing my partner? Can be a huge amount of pressure on a sub too. So agree and disagree.
So I've been trying to be more inclusive and get that vanilla aspect into people to understand, so we can kind of, either people that are learning about the lifestyle need something to relate to. Um, Dom drop and Ray, as you know, and anybody else that's a parent here can probably say, when you yell at your kid or you have to be stern with them, that's that moment of dominance. And then 10 minutes later, when you're getting something out of the fridge, you're like, well, fuck, maybe I yelled at him too much. Maybe I shouldn't have yelled at them for this. I wonder if they're okay. And then they come give you a hug or come, talk to you like nothing ever happened. And it's like, oh, okay, we're good.
So
it's kind of that.
I want to jump in on that last part that Ray said and Trish said. I have to say, I kind of disagree with what Ray said. And this is the reason why. If you are in a 24/7 dynamic with a dom and a sub, it is your job to say, as the dom, what you want. Your sub should never have to think about, hey, am I doing this right or wrong? Because they should know what they're being told to do. If you're not knowing what you're being told to do, then your dom might not be doing the dom thing.
Basics.
Yeah, and that's more like where I was coming from, because I've seen it with Phil. And I've seen it with other 24/7 lifestyle people we've been with, that the dom takes on the full responsibility of instructing the sub, making sure the sub knows every bit of rules they're supposed to follow. They're responsible for making sure we know when we break the rules. They take on so much responsibility on themselves for everything: our protection, our care, our education, making sure that we do what we're supposed to do. It's almost like they take on a 24/7 caregiver role in addition to the dom, and that is a lot to put on one person. And that takes a lot of the burden off of the sub. So I'm not saying subs can't go into sub drop outside of a scene. It's just a lot less likely than what a dom will go through.
Yeah, and with that, I'm trying to remember where I was going.
Oh, that's okay.
While you remember, Day 6, what were you about to say, bud? You might trigger something there.
It's okay. The inner dynamic of each relationship, of course, is going to be different. It's all customizable, like Jen said. But whether you're 24/7 in that lifestyle or not, you go through that emotional drop, and as a good partner, no matter what the dynamic is, you want to be aware of that. Whether it's worrying about the financial needs or worrying about where the next orgasm is going to be, how intense it's going to be. Those are things that need to be communicated about, both from the one experiencing the drop, let the other person know what they need, and for the person to, hey, tell me what you need, or will this work, or I can help you in this way and only in this way. All this communication is still very vital. Just wanted to bring it back with the communication.
Absolutely.
So I figured out what I wanted to say before, and this is my opinion, so feel free to disagree or whatever.
I disagree.
But thank you. I'm so glad to hear your point. Please tell me how you disagree. I'd love to hear it.
I disagree.
What do you disagree with?
Life.
What do you have to say? Hold on. All
right, go ahead.
All right, kid. Stop it.
Anyways, if you are new to the lifestyle, you should not be doing 24-hour or anything, is my opinion, because you're not responsible enough, and you don't know exactly what you're doing to be put in a position of that amount of power. So many people come into this lifestyle, they're like, oh my god, I want a master-slave dynamic, I want a 24-hour dom thing, is going to go on forever, and I want somebody who's going to be under my heel doing whatever the fuck I say all the time. Not the attitude to go in with this. You know, if you're gonna do something like that, at least find yourself a very, very experienced counterpart to teach you how to do those things. Even if it's like a bottom or a sub, finding an experienced sub, best thing you can do when you're beginning.
Absolutely.
If you want to get into it with your partner and you're both new, then, you know, do your research. Don't just jump into shit because you can, and, you know, discuss it beforehand, figure out what you're getting into.
Absolutely. I disagree with my disagreement a minute ago, Trish.
I just wanted to add to what Dream said is, while I've only been in the lifestyle 18 months, Phil has been in there for over 20 years. And even when we got together and I expressed an interest in a 24/7, Phil still insisted on finding me mentorship, on making me educate myself, on us going into a 24/7 dynamic slowly. So this is not something you like I agree with Dream. This is not something you just want to jump into right away when you first get into it. We worked towards 24/7 in the last 18 months, but it wasn't always that way. We had to work towards it. And I had to educate myself and get mentored and, you know, things like that so that I could learn. So it's definitely not something you want to jump into. And KinkSlayer over here, while being a Dom, is being a bratty Dom, which has triggered Ray's bratty side, which is coming out because a little's triggered now.
But
which
I
is
will
what
say,
happens with a brat tamer and a brat is brat Doms or brat tamers love to bring out a little's bratty side and say some.
So
I will say though, I'm with Ray there on her point there. Is you regardless of living 24/7 or if you're just, you know, focused on being a submissive or a dominant, you can't take out that human aspect. You never can. You're never going to be a robot. You're always going to wonder, you know, even if you are submissive, you should expect your dom to be able to tell you you're not doing this well enough. You can do this a little better and all that stuff. But at the same time, you're still going to wonder, are they not saying something? You know.
And see, that's the thing with new people. They get into this and they're like, I want to please my partner. Here, let me not say this. Let me say this instead. I think, and I thought this was a great point with what Trish said. If you want to get in to this lifestyle 24/7, just starting out, start out with, hey, I would like you to do this research with me as a task. And let's see where it goes from there.
And that's exactly how Phil approached it with me. It was like, let's learn this together. Let's see if you're really into this. You know, see if this is what you really want. And he actually helped with finding me research to read and people to talk to and things like that too. So it was something that, you know, we had to work on. It wasn't something we just jumped right into.
Yeah, with Jen, me being polyamorous when we came into this relationship and her not exactly knowing what it was, like, look, this is what you're in for. This is who I am. Here's some books. Here's some podcasts. Let's enjoy this together, because in that aspect, are you down for it? If you're not, then we need to know that before we step into a relationship. If you are, then we'll navigate it together.
Like, oh shit, this exists?
Right? Like, I opened a whole new world to her. Like, most of the time when I'm like, by the way, and I tell somebody, by the way, I'm polyamorous, and they're like, oh, nope, I'm good.
Yeah.
I tell her, and she's like, what's that? And I'm like, this is what it is. She's like, oh shit, that's a thing? Okay, well, let's learn.
See, I'm learning that there's that you can have sexual polyamory and emotional polyamory or both. And I didn't know. I just thought, and see, I didn't realize that swinging is nothing but sexual polyamory. And Phil was into that when I first got with him. I had my first introduction to swinging was when I discovered my mom's wife swap kink novels under her bed when I was 12. And so I had a little inkling of, you know, hey, this is kind of exciting. This excites me. But later on, as a married woman in a vanilla relationship that was abusive, I kind of veered away from a lot of that. A lot of abuse, a lot of extramarital affairs kind of put me off the whole swinging thing. And a lot of that trauma is what I'm working through, which is why we've started the role playing, so that I can work on exploring what I'm curious in without feeling like I'm being betrayed. So that's always my fear going into it, is my feelings of betrayal will end up sabotaging a relationship when it comes to that. So that's also something we're slowly working on me overcoming.
And I like that.
That reminds me of a previous episode we had talking about role playing and Ray telling us about having it help you through trauma. Funny how it comes full circle like that.
Always, everything always comes full circle.
Yep. But then, that's where I learned the whole reclaiming thing. As Phil said, when it's sexual polyamory and it's just purely swinging, you're supposed to do some kind of reclaiming thing. It's sexual reclaiming that basically tells your full-time life partner that they're still desired, loved, and wanted, despite the fact that you're having extra partners on the side. And my first experience with a reclaiming ritual just really set me into subdrop big time. I was not expecting the overwhelming feelings I felt with that at all.
Well, see, and I like that that's the way you guys are experimenting with it. And that would also be good to start telling people that are interested in polyamory. If you can't trust your partner with yourself as someone else, then you're never going to be able to trust them and understand them with an actual other person.
Yeah, and he didn't bring it up. I was the one that actually brought it up. I came to him and I said, I think I'm kind of ready to explore this. I was like, but I want to try and experiment first. I was like, can we just pretend that I'm somebody else and you're having sex? I was like, I want to feel how you would touch them. I want to feel how you would talk to them. I wanted to experience it. And so I had him put himself in the mindset of he just picked somebody up at a bar or something and took them home and, go through the whole role playing. It was extremely intense. I realized that I'm not quite as bothered. It didn't really bother me as bad as I thought it was going to. But he was very insistent that he do a reclaiming because he said he didn't want to leave it like that. He wanted me to know that he still loved me. And despite all the role playing that, I was still important to him. And like I said, during that part of it, I mean, we did the reclaiming the next day, but it was still that part of it. Just really, really, that's where the real emotional came in. And I definitely went into a big subdrop. I mean, I was completely nonverbal. I was in tears. I was curled up in a ball, and all he could do was just sit there and hold me.
Well, see, that also gives you an idea of the ritual to come. So
yeah.
If you continue on and you do become non-monogamous and you do start playing outside of each other or with each other with other people, you know that is also an important part of it. So if in the event that something didn't, you guys went and played, somebody went out, whatever, and after there wasn't a reclaiming, then you also see there's an issue there that needs to be addressed. So like it's a multiple fronts there you can handle it. So that's fantastic.
And that's what Phil was telling me too. He goes, if there's ever never reclaiming afterwards, he goes, you need to come talk to me because something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Shit. It's we're gonna have to cut this actually at 12. Jen's gotta work tomorrow. So but we're gonna boom. Taking care of yourself, aftercare.
That's the most important thing.
Absolutely. Taking care of yourself, I feel, is more important than taking care of your partner.
You got to make sure your cup's full enough to pour from.
Like Ray said, yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Absolutely.
So as far as myself goes, I mean, it makes me feel better because she cleans stuff all the time around this house. So, after we have our fun, I make sure that I clean up for her. I clean, things up and I do these things. They make me feel like I'm contributing. And after a scene or after we play and do things, I'll grab the drinks downstairs. I'll grab the snacks to bring back upstairs. I take that moment to take care of her. By giving her the aftercare she needs, I feel like I'm fulfilling my aftercare for myself. I'm fulfilling a role
for yourself.
Sometimes,
it's grab a whole box of fudge rounds.
Well, we both need fudge rounds. I just need more than you do. But with that, it's almost a selflessness with me. You know, I'm doing selfless things, but I'm doing it for selfish reasons. It's a complete conundrum there, but
No,
doesn't
it's
have-
not really a conundrum when you're speaking
Yeah.
from the Dom aspect. When you turn around and serve your sub, it is that aspect of, okay, this is my penance, myself giving back because I took from you. Like I fully understand and validate that level. I can't say that I do that in my current relationship, being as vanilla as it is, but I will say that because in our normal dynamic, I am the more dominant because that's just not something I can shake off of, regardless of how vanilla my relationship is. When it comes to, when she gets home from work, I take off her socks and her compression stocking and put on her comfy socks, and I help her out of her jeans and put on her comfy sweat. And we take that 10 minutes that she first gets home together. That's it. That act of service fills me with enough joy that I don't feel bad for pinching her on the butt when she walks in, even though she's told me no.
right.
That's just a bit we have. It's a thing. It's cute. Bear with it.
Oh yeah,
So,
it works.
a little plug, you guys. Y'all will really enjoy Multi-Amory's last podcast they put out, all about rituals. It's sounding very like a lot of the stuff they were talking about on here. So check that out, you guys.
It was really good.
Yeah.
So how about my submissives? What are some things that you can do for yourself? Like your dom's going to provide aftercare, but what are some things that you can do for yourself? Whether it's something mentally you can tell yourself, or you can take care of something after. How do you care for yourself?
See, that's something I struggle with, and Phil gets on me all the time. I tend to lean more towards being a service sub, and my love language is acts of service. So I tend to have a really, really hard time doing anything for myself, and I'm always wanting to do things for Phil. So there's a lot of times he gets on me and he'll tell me to go, go watch a movie, go color, go, and he'll send me off to the bedroom and he'll refuse to come back with me and tell me, go have some private time. But even in that, it's like I will constantly get up and wander into the office to check on him and see if he needs anything, and he'll bark at me to go back and enjoy myself. So he's got to really keep me pushed in that direction, because I really struggle with that because of my love language and the way I am as a sub. So sometimes he's got to be like, nope, not interacting with you. Go on and go take care of yourself.
Very nice, very nice. I'm gonna go with Ray, and then I want to get Leanne's perspective on it, especially in a way you could tell somebody how to care for themselves in some aspect. But Ray, what you got?
Just basics, ordinary self-care stuff, like take a bath, read your favorite book. Like when the guy that I'm dating right now visits, he visits for a couple days at a time, but I make sure, like, the day after he goes home, I know I'm probably going to have a pretty low emotion day, so I will set aside time specifically that day to meditate, to watch my favorite show in my underwear. Well, you guys know better than that, but watch my favorite show when I'm comfortable.
No underwear.
Watch my favorite show in my state of comfort.
That's a good way to put it.
Or go outside, get my feet in the dirt. Whatever makes you feel more centered and things like that. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I like that. How about you, Leanne? What about something personally, maybe, and then also how I know being a coach, it's important to teach people how to take care of themselves or help them learn how to take care of themselves. What about those two perspectives there?
For me personally, I'm kind of with Ray. I like grounding. I like to go outside and walk barefoot in the grass, put my feet in the dirt, talk to my plants. That's part, and my self-care is, I do a daily meditative practice, and sometimes I'll need an extra one, just to kind of bring me back into myself. And I also really try to teach that to my clients as well. is to find those things that are very self-specific, like having a meditative practice or exercising or grounding. I also like to cook as part of kind of my grounding. After we've cuddled, we've, connected, then let me cook for you. But it also fills my cup to cook and prepare this great meal that we can share together. And so,
And it also doesn't always have to be like big things. It can be just taking an extra little step with something you were already going to do anyways. You were already going to take a shower, use your favorite shampoo.
Treat yourself.
yeah.
Okay, I like it.
Because self-care is sexy, isn't it, Ray?
Yes, it is.
You're gonna make her face turn as red as Alice's face did earlier.
No, I could do that in other ways. We won't go there.
So this is going to be for day 6 specifically. Obviously, we're not all. Well, some of us are in 24/7 dynamics, but some of us don't have a DS dynamic at all at the moment. So let's cover some things for some people that may be watching Aftercare for non-scene and non-dynamic relationships.
Well, I mean, obviously the go-to is the cuddling, but when you're cuddling, there's a huge whole science behind it. I follow a cuddle therapist on TikTok who does some amazing work on just the emotional bonding that comes with physical touch. And when you're talking about something outside of a dynamic, you're really talking about building that love relationship that you already have and just letting that humanity bleed through. So laying there cuddling, telling jokes. I love cracking jokes after sex. Let me just say, a partner will always remember you if you make them laugh right after sex. Those kinds of things can just make humans feel human. And it's as beautiful as, bandaging up your bottom's wounds after you've given them a great pleasure, or cooking that meal afterwards and just, enjoying that grilled cheese sandwich and the tomato soup and watching your favorite show. It's about bonding. All of this, whether it be kink to vanilla, it's about bonding with other humans. And so in that non-scene aftercare, remember to be human. And bring out the human in them and remind yourself that you're human. You don't need to be anything more than that.
Right. I love it.
I believe you're talking about intimacy, correct?
Yeah, that thing. I knew that was a porn thing for you, Dream, so I was dancing around it like, a flamenco dancer. But I think I did well. Can I get a 7 out of 10 at least? Thanks. Go ahead.
Yes, Ray?
Intimacy does not always have to be physical either. There are a lot of people that don't like physical touch, and there are other ways of being intimate. Just being in the same room with your partner, just existing together can also build that bond if that's what works for you.
Do that as well.
That's my favorite.
Good point.
Nothing. Well, everybody, I've had so much fun. So, hey, real quick, though, before everybody leaves, this thing is a pain in the ass because I do have it on local recording. That way, if there's any issues, it'll patch it up for me. So when I hit it in broadcast, for everybody hang out just a second. We'll get that so it syncs together and I can use all the other things, because if it don't, then it doesn't sync yours and it's stupid. Yeah, I have had a fantastic time. Aftercare is, although it seemed like a very casual conversation, it's still a very important conversation. We all tend to find ways to do that. The casual conversations are usually like where we're talking about things that matter the most. Whereas, when we get a little tiffy and have a little fun with each other, those are the things that are very nuanced. So I do appreciate that with all of you. And I'm glad all of you are here.
Can I disagree with you for a minute?
Always. If you don't, I don't feel like you're here.
So
Facts.
it should be as much of a passionate conversation as you describing the scene itself.
Amen. And
It's just as important that you plan it out and, you know, get everything ready, communicate, decide what you're going to do
Absolutely.
afterwards, because it is a big part of your scene and it is a big part of how your negotiations should be with your partner beforehand.
But the point he was expressing was that we all feel this way, so we're not butting heads about anything.
Yeah, but he said it's just a casual conversation.
No, like the tone of
this
what we're
conversation.
talking. Yeah, our
Oh,
tone
okay.
tonight is just very
All
casual.
right, I
Had
was
to cut anybody off.
Well, I love you guys. I've had a wonderful time. Leanne, you go on at, said an hour before earlier, so you go on at 1 p.m. Eastern. Something
that's
like
4
that.
p.m.
Yes.
Pacific, 2 p.m. Mountain, 2 p.m. Central.
And then other times, other places. But if you have the all access pass,
You can go
it
back
doesn't
after.
matter because you can go watch it whenever, and you can get that right there. Or Jen's link tree, or any of us can all, you know. But that right there, I just made that just so I had a direct link to Leanne's link. That way, it just pulls it right up and gets things to them. But the all access pass is worth it. And before we hippity hop out of here, if anybody wants a fantastic product, if you don't want to type in all that stuff there, go to Juniper Jen's website. It's somewhere on the front page, but you can also type in Spank Salve. From what I see of the reviews when she sells that stuff, it's magic. It's got like a medicinal kind of scent. It's comforting, cooling. It's got an alcohol in it to keep things sanitized, but not enough to sting. It's quite a interesting combination. So proud of her on that one. That's the one I think if you guys see anywhere nationally, it's going to be the Spank Salve for sure. So yeah, so I am definitely happy. Anybody got any last minute words of wisdom for anybody?
Kink responsibly.
Drink your water.
Educate.
And remember, the angle of the dangle is equally proportionate to the heat of the beat. Good night, folks.